Hello. In this video, I want to go through all of the cards that are in my Errant and Giada control deck. In control decks, we have this issue where we don't have enough cards and choices, and so I built this around the fact that the majority of the cards you can cast in this deck have either flash or flying, and you can play them off the top and have access to them as if they were in your hands. First, I'm going to go over all of the cards with flash or flying that are in my deck. And then I'm going to go through all of the cards that don't have flash, and then I'm going to go through all the lands. So first up, Mole Drifter. Everyone knows what Mole Drifter does. Mole Drifter is 5 mana or evoking for 3. It's a flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. So you get card draw on a card you can cast from the top of your library. Angel of Ruin, 7 mana flyer, 5/7. When it enters, exile up to 2 target artifacts or enchantments. This is a control deck. This controls the board, exiles things, and in a worst case, it's a plane cycler. It can get any planes out of your deck, including non-basic planes. Wind Shaper Planetar, 4 and a white for a 4/4 creature angel with flash and flying. And when it enters during the declare attacker step, for each attacking creature, you may reselect which player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. Talk about controlling the board, controlling which creatures are now attacking who, and you can cast this from the top of our library with our commander during that declare attacker step, which is great. Fear of Imposters, 1 blue for a 3/2 enchantment creature nightmare. It has flash, and when it enters, counter target spell its controller manifest dread. Being able to have a creature come into play at instant speed, be castable at the top of our library, and be a counter spell is fantastic. Our controller getting a 2/2 that maybe becomes a creature could be problematic down the road, but in theory, it could be problematic for any of our opponents, and they'd get rid of that. So you get to control the board, replace with a 2/2 that any of your opponents can then deal with. Not all of your opponents can deal with countering something, but they can deal with a 2/2. Fairy Mastermind, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 flash flyer, so you cast it off the top of your library at any time. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card, and you can pay for each player draws a card. Drawing cards is great. Being able to have something flash comes into play and taking advantage of them doing their crazy shenanigans is great. Vigor the Watcher, 1 white flyer 2/2. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card. So that counts casting our commander from our command zone or casting cards from the top of our library, which our deck is aiming to do. Flicker Wisp, 1 white 3/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the next end step. You can do a couple things with this. A, you can take advantage of your own enter the battlefield abilities. B, you can if this spell has flash with like Leyline of Anticipation, you can flash into play and exile a blocker that's attacking you, and then it comes back into play. And when it comes back into play, it's no longer attacking you. You don't have to deal with that consequence. So there is some potential for Flicker Wisp. I like it. Jubilant Skybonder, 1 a white or a blue and a white or a blue for a 2/2 flyer. Creatures you control with flying have spells your opponents cast that target this creature cost 2 more to cast. So it gives all of your creatures with flying pseudo ward. Genji, Sky Warden, 3 white 3/3 legendary creature bird wizard. It has flying and vigilance, and whenever it attacks, attacking creatures with flying get +2/+0. Whenever it blocks, blocking creatures with flying get +0/+2. So it has flying we can cap up the top, and it works in our flying base, flying kindred, flying typal deck. We're just going crazy with flyers. High Fae Trickster, 3 and a blue. You may cast spells as though they had flash, which means now all of the cards on the top of our library have flash. You can cast spells with flash off the top of your library. It's that simple. Now everything in our deck has flash. Not the lands, but everything else. Kinjali's Sun Ween, white 2/3 flyer. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped on a flyer. We're a control deck. Sticking a flyer in that slows our opponents down. They can't attack with haste, and it just gums up the board because your opponent's going to attack them and they don't have blockers. Just a lot of great stuff. Welcoming Vampire, white 2/3 flyer. Whenever 1 or more creatures with power 2 or less enter under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Plenty of flyers, including our commander, including the Sunwind we just went over, have power 2 or less. So drawing cards off of them, removing cards from the top of our deck that we can't do anything with is great. Linvala, Shield of the Seagate, white 1 for a 3/3 flyer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, choose target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Until your next turn, it can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So we're never really going to have a full party, so it doesn't really matter. I don't really know why I read that, but you can sack it, choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability on a turn. That's the part we really care about. It's a flyer that has, hexproof or indestructible to your entire team. Great. Venser Shaper Savant, 2 blue, 2/2 flash. When it enters, return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. This just coming right off the top, coming into play, returning a big attacker to its owner's hand, and then just chump blocking something else. Great play. It's basically free because you got off the top of your library. You don't go down on cards on value on it. You know, sometimes you get into these worlds where like, oh, you unsummoned, and so you're down a card. You know, casting them from the top of our library does not have that same cost associated with it, which is great. Tobias, Doomed Conqueror, 2 white, blue for a 3/2 legendary creature, human soldier. It has flash, and when it dies, for each non-token creature you control that died this turn, make it to 2. So some kind of board wipe protection and some sort of board wipe protection is what I play this as. Yeah, cast it off the top or cast from your hand. Esperia Supreme Judge. 2 white, blue, 6/4 flyer. When a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, you may draw a card. More card draw is always great. Nautiloid Ship. The ship is 4 colors for a 5/5 artifact vehicle with flying. When it enters, exile target player's graveyard. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may put a creature exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control. So it's a little bit of a setup card, but it is controlling because it does exile a graveyard. You know, really slows that reanimator player down. It has flying, so you can cast it off the top, even though it's not a creature. And then whenever it connects, a lot of things, you can crew 3 to it, and whenever it attacks and connects, you get a big thing into play, which is great. Windborn Muse is 3 and a white for a 2/3 flyer. Creatures can't attack you unless the controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. We're a control deck. We're trying to slow down the board. This is a way to slow down the board, and it's on theme. It's a flyer. Tishana's Tide Binder, 2 blue, 3/2 flash. When it enters, counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as it's on the battlefield. So if this is on top of your library and you just cast this, counter some triggered ability that's going to, you know, really kick you in the butt, counter target activated ability as well. Yeah. I can't really explain. Casting things with flash on top of your library without going down on cards is just fantastic. Research Thief, 4 and a blue for a 3/3 flash flyer. Whenever an artifact creature controls combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this itself, every single time it does damage, draws a card. The ship would do that as well. We don't have too many artifacts, honestly. I just think a 3/3 flyer that it can deal combat damage and then draw a card is fine. And then there's upside with the deck. Smirking Spelljacker, 4 and a blue for a 3/3 flash flyer. When it enters the battlefield, exile target spell an opponent controls. Whenever it attacks, if a card is exiled with it, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Fantastic. So you can, you know, steal something that they cast. It's a counter spell. It comes into play. It essentially counters it because that spell's gone. The effects don't happen, and then next time it attacks, you get those effects. So if you're in a commander game and you're player 1 and there's 3 other players, player 4 casts a spell, you cast Smirking Spelljacker, you counter it, it goes to your turn, it removes its summoning sickness, and then you can attack with it. And as soon as you attack, it doesn't even have to connect. It attacks, and you immediately cast that big spell. Vesuvian Drifter, 2 and a blue for a 2/4 creature shapeshifter flyer. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. At the beginning of each combat, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card, it can become a copy of it, except it has flying. So, kind of fun. Just another way to look at the top card. You can become copies of it. You know, I've never actually played with this card, but I do think it'll be fun, and I love the stained glass treatment on it. I think it's coming on the camera really nice. Archangel Avacyn, 3 white, 4/4 flash, flying, vigilance, so Super Sarah Angel. When it enters, creatures you control get indestructible at the end of turn, so we can prevent a board wipe from hurting us. Whenever a non-angel creature you control dies, you transform it into Avacyn the Purifier. It's a 6/5 with flying. Whenever this creature transforms into it, it deals 3 damage to each other creature and each opponent. So this will kill our commander. It will board wipe, but the truth of the matter is that that's probably fine. Just killing everything in play that's small is just a good thing to happen. And it might prevent our opponents from killing our non-angel creatures. Stoic Sphinx, 2 blue 5/3 flash flyer, and it has hexproof as long as you haven't cast a spell this turn. But it's a flashing creature that can come off the top, and there's a lot of cards in Commander and even commanders that you can just flash into play and immediately trade with the commanders attacking you or the creatures attacking you, and 5 is a lot of damage. Astral Dragon, 6 blue 4/4 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 tokens that are copies of target non-creature permanent. except it's a 3/3. Individual types, and they have flying. So this is a big thing to cast. We don't have a lot of big creatures. I think the Supreme Judge was the other big creature that I have in the deck. But being able to copy any non-creature permanent, including ones that your opponents own, and then they become 3/3 dragons with flying. Stormfleet Negotiator. 2 and a blue for a 2/2 creature, Siren Pirate Flyer. When it attacks, each player reveals the top card of their library. For each non-land card, you get a map, and then each player draws a card. This is a fantastic card. A 2/2 flyer for 3 that every single time it attacks, each player draws a card, including you. You can set this up to only attack with it after you've cast spells from the top of your library until you hit something you can't cast. And then you can just attack, reveal it, draw it, and then possibly the next card you could cast with your commander, which is nice. Luminous Brood Moth, 2 white, 3/4 flyer. When a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield with the flying counter on it. We have some non-flying creatures. Ornithopter of Paradise. It's a mana rock that is on theme, which is great. Shimmermere. You may cast artifact spells as though they had flash. So now it opens up the possibility of more of these cards being able to be cast from the top of our library, which is great, and it has flash in itself. Illusionary Ambusher, 4 and a blue for a flash. When it's stealth damage, draw that many cards. This is a great thing to just throw into play. It gets still, a 6/6 that doesn't have trample. It blocks it. You paid 5 mana, gained 6 life, and drew 6 cards. That's a great deal. That is a great deal. Portal Mage also has flash, blue, and a 2 for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield during the declare attacker step, you may reselect which player or planeswalker target attacking creature is attacking. So this was printed in 2020, and this was printed in 2022, and you can just see how far Magic has come. And then, really just put on white, and then you can just switch any kind of creatures, and where Portal Mage only switch the 1. Wandering Rescuer, 5 mana for a 3/4 flash, convoke, double strike, and other tapped creatures you control have hexproof. So after they attack, or you use them to crew to something, or use them to station to something, they have hexproof. Warden of the Isle, 3 mana, 2/2 creature spells with flying cost 1 less to cast. It's on theme. You can cast from the top of your library, and it makes things cheaper. Cloudsteel Kieran, 2 and a white for a 3/2 flyer. Equipped creature has flying, and you can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. And you can reconfigure it for 5 to stick it on something. So it's just a 3/2 flyer that you can cast off the top. You have to pay 5 to put it on a creature, and it prevents you from losing the game. Jackdaw Savior, kind of bummed because this card is curving, but 3 mana for a 3/1 flyer. When it or another creature you control with flying dies, return another target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's like that artifact card, great card. Again, I haven't got a chance to play with this particular card, but I just know it's going to play fantastically. Herald of the Eternal Dawn, 4 white, 6/6 flash flying. You can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. As you can tell, I like these cards. This deck that I built was pretty much just like cards I own that I could put together. I didn't put too much like, I gotta buy this card, I gotta buy this card. I just threw the cards I had together, and that made the cut. The Great Shark, 3 blue, 5/4 flash. Whenever this creature enters, counter target artifact or creature spell. It's a 5/4, so you can cast it up the top, counter something, block something. It having flash is a great thing. Alms Collector in the nice kitty cat art, 3 and a white for a 3/4 flash. If an opponent would draw 2 more cards, instead you and that player draw a card. Great time to flash this in is after they cast a big sacrifice something, gain cards equal to its power. I'm thinking like great or good, the green cards or the black cards, they do the same thing. Stopping them from drawing a bunch of cards and you get to take in on the action is great. Tamuk, Distinguished Advocist, white, 2/3 flyer, lands on the battlefield and land cards in graveyard can't be the target spells and ability your opponent's control, and your opponents can't play land cards from graveyards. Sorry, Sultai players. Sorry, Muldrotha players. Sorry, Omnath, Locus of Creation players. You got to slow down. Great card. So those are all of the flash and flying cards that make up my deck. Next, I want to go through the cards that don't have flash or flying that made the cut. Leyline of Anticipation. You may cast spells as though they had flash. That's definitely going to make the cut because now everything that you want to play, it has flash. Azorius Signet, my mana rocks are going to be in this pile. You need mana rocks. You're not playing green. You need Soul Ring. Wave Break, Hippocamp. We're casting spells as flash off the top of our library, so being able to draw a card every single time is just great. It is a 2/2/3 mana creature that does that. Arcane Signet, we're not playing green, but I think every deck since Throne of Eldraine that's a commander deck should be playing this card no matter how many colors you are. Sublime Epiphany, 4 blue for an instant. Choose 1 or more, counter target spell, counter target activated triggered ability, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, create a token as a copy of target creature control, target player draws a card. You're going to choose the full Monty and just go crazy. Silver Scrutiny, Blue X, you may cast it as though it had flash if its X is 3 or less. I should have included this in the other pile because technically if you paid 2 or 3, you can cast this off the top, which is fantastic. Fellow Stone, Machine God's Effigy. It enters as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and has tap at blue. So you can take advantage of just like the static abilities. All your creatures have trample. All your creatures, all your spells cost 1 less, whatever it is. Gale's Redirection, 3 blue instant. Exile target spell, then roll a d20. And then you add that spell's mana value. 1 through 14, you may cast the exile card for as long as it's been exiled and spend mana Zol's mana of any type or color. 15 plus, you can cast it for free as long as it remains exiled. So if you counter a big spell like Galta with this, you just have to roll a 3 or greater, and there's like, an 85% chance of you accomplishing that on the die. So casting big spells means you're going to get to cast them, most likely. Midnight Clock, we're a control deck. We want to draw a card. Shuffling our hand and Grieve into our library is not really a downside, and it adds mana in the meanwhile. Supreme Verdict, we're a control deck. Destroy everything, can't be countered. Counterspell, we're a control deck. Summary Dismissal, exile all spells and counter all abilities. Sometimes your opponents just try to do these crazy things where they have like 20 triggers on the stack and you just erase all of it. Bident of Satha, 2 blue. Whenever a creature controls combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And then that's just good in of itself because we're doing a lot of countering. We're trading a lot of one of our resources for one of our opponent's resources, but then the other 2 opponents still have as many resources as they did have. And then also being able to make our opponent's creatures just attack is great. You can do that whenever they have a bunch of 3/3s and you have, your flashy Avacyn, Sarah Angels in play, and you can just make them attack with everything. They're not going to attack everything at you, so it's great. Solemn Simulacrum, we're not playing green, so we need ways to have creatures enters to search for basic land cards, and whenever it dies, you just jump block with it, you draw a card. Swiftfoot Boots, giving things hexproof and haste is great. We're not in red, so we want haste, and just, giving our commander some protection or some big thing we just flash into play, haste is great. Sea Double, it's an instant for 4. It can't be copied. Choose one. If an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you may choose both. That's not that hard to do in Commander. That's like 5 turns into the game, they're going to have 8 cards in their graveyard. You can copy target spell, or you can make a token that's a copy of something. Great card. Just fantastic. Mangara, the Diplomat, 3 and a white for a 2/4 legendary creature, human cleric. It has lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you or planeswalkers you control, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell, draw a card. I usually say this card's great because we're not playing blue, but this card is just great. Your opponents are going to do things that they just already want to do, and you get to draw cards because of it. Fantastic. Modify Memory, 5 mana. I finally found a deck for this card. Exchange control of 2 target creatures controlled by different players. If you control neither creature, draw 3. So you switch 2 commanders around, and then you draw 3 cards. Jason's Ingenuity with upside. Now you just traded commanders, and if those 2 opponents really needed those commanders, their whole strategy just broke down. Then you can also just trade off one of yours and gain control of their big commander. So, there's just tons of options. Imposter Mech, white, 1 and a blue for a 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, it enters as a copy of a creature an opponent controls, except it's a vehicle and has crew 3. So it enters, you get the enter the battlefield effect, and then it's a creature, it's like a 6/6 and it can do all kinds of fun stuff. You just have to crew it. So it's a good card to become your opponent's things in more control deck. That's something I like to do in my control decks. Signature Sabotage, 3 mana, counter target spell, surveil 1. Being able to go, the top card of my library is a land, and just putting it into the graveyard is a great place to be, because now you can cast actual spells you can cast with Errant and Giada off the top of our library. Dazzling Theater and Prop Room, creature spells you control have Convoke, so you can convoke the creatures in play to cast the ones with flash off our grid type off of our library. And then untapping all of them means anytime there's something with flash on the top, it untaps them all. So all of our creatures have pseudo vigilance, but then you can also use them the next turn to tap and convoke to get something else with flash off the top. Source Plowshares, we're a control deck. Teferi Time Raveler, I like the +1 the most. Until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells over that flash. Now, a third of these cards now have flash. You can return things because you're focused on that controlling deck, but also making sure your opponents can't cast things with flash is great. And then Glorious Gale, counter target creature spell. If it was legendary, the ring tempts you. A little bit of upside, but counting creatures is always good. Now I'm going to fly through the lands. And in the middle, I'm going to talk about some of the things that I would watch out for if you were going to build this deck, because it's not perfect yet. So I'm just going to flip through the lands, and if there's anything interesting or particularly I want to point out, I'll point them out. But in theory, I'm just going to talk about what the deck needs. And the truth of the matter is, this is great with flash decks because you can build up mana and then you can cast big things with it later, especially because you have extra mana laying around. The thing the deck needs the most is more ways to look at the top cards of your library and surveilling them away. That's what the deck needs. And I know there's those Spider-Man lands, but I know that Spider-Man tap lands can surveil. But I don't know if there's a white and blue one, honestly. I think it would be white and green, not white and blue. So the deck needs more ways to look at the top card and stick it into the graveyard. I have a version of this deck on Magic Arena, and I have a lot of effects in that deck that do that exact thing. So, and by that exact thing, I mean they look at the cards and you can put them into your graveyard. It's an artifact that taps. At the beginning of your upkeep, you do it, or just anything that happens. Surveilling, milling a card on purpose is great. You know, scrying does the same thing. You can just scry cards to the bottom. So Castle of Vantress is good there. You know, this is just, you know, upside. Giving your next spell improvise means you can tap your artifacts you might have. If your opponents give you treasures or clues, you can just tap your little things to cast your flashing spells. Making things unblockable is great when you have big 6/6s, and then this could copy of any creature you control. Just, you know, something I'm trying to think. Something non-legendary, you can take advantage of it. But yeah, those are all the cards in my Errant and Giada deck. I hope you enjoyed this deck tech. If you're building this deck, please let me know how you're building it, or if you own one, let me know how you built it in the comments below. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and may your top decks be ever in your favor. Thanks.